Yeah, friends, I am going to show you how to create boto scripts using client objects. So today I'm going to demonstrate it using client object to list the IAM users. Let me open one program for that. So okay, so we are going to list of all IAM users who are in my AWS console, right? Let me show you the IAM users here. So let me click on IAM resource. Let it open this IAM users list. So once we click on users here, we can see the number of users in my AWS account. Okay, so here I have two usernames, Deepu and Sasi. So I wanted to list these two users using client object using boto 3 documentation. For that, let me open this one. So for this, I'm going to write this program using boto 3, right? So for that, let me import boto 3 module. Okay, for that, first we have to create the session for this AWS management console. For that, I'm going to write the program here. Let me AWS management console auto 3 session. So here I'm going to use profile using root credentials. Okay, so already I configured the root credentials in my AWS config method. So for that, I'm using profile name as root. After that, I wanted to create the IAM resource object here. Let me, for this IAM role, for this IAM, I am going to create one more object here, IAM resource. You can define any variable name. Here I'm using IAM console resource object. Okay, using AWS management console, I'm going to access it. Okay, using client method, right? You can use resource or client, but here I'm going to demonstrate how to use client method for that. So here I'm going to use service name IAM. Suppose if you want to work with the IAM or EC2 or S3 resource, you can use service name here. Okay, so here I'm going to use the client method. So what is the next step to define the methods here? So I don't have any methods to define, so let me go through the documentation. Okay, for this, let it open the Google Doc. So I don't know what method should define the all the IAM users. For that, here I'm going to going through the IAM documentation, boto 3 documentation. Let click on this documentation and click here. So it is going to give the all documentation for the all resources available in the AWS. So here click on available services. If you click on available services, these are the list of services available in the AWS. So he can get the every document for this services. Okay, now I wanted to check for the IAM users. For that, let me go through the IAM service. So just drag this one. So yeah, so this is the IAM service, right? If you observe this, you can find client and paginator, weightage, some others resource, service resource. So you can write the programs using client and service resource. Let me later we will discuss what is paginators, weightage after that. First go through this client object. Okay, let me click on this one. So here I'm going to write the program to display the all the IAM users. Already I defined the AWS management console and IAM console. After that, I wanted to list out all the users. I don't know what method I want to define here. For that, I'm going to going through the documentation. So when I click on this IAM client method, it will display the all the methods and variables. So already we imported the boto 3 module and we define the boto 3 client, right? So in our program already we done these two steps, right? So in the boto 3 documentation, all the client or resource object go using default session. But here we define the customized session because I define the root session, right? So after that I want to display the list of IAM users. For this, if you go through these available methods, I want to search for the any method for this list users. So if you go through these all lists, all methods, you will get it. So what method used for what purpose. So here I'm going to list of all the IAM users. Let's go through this documentation and find out what method would be useful for that. So if you observe this, these are the list users and go through that list roles and so list user. One method is there. Let me click on this list users, right? Let it open this documentation and methods. So if you observe this method list users, right? And this method uses some arguments. So we will discuss what is the arguments later. So first go through the list method. Okay. If you observe this operation returns all the users in AWS account. So which we require. So if you observe this client syntax for this method, right? So already we created the client object and dot using list user method. Let me copy this method. Okay. So we have to create the client, right? First we have to create the IAM console. So I'm going to create the client using AWS management console dot client object I'm using, right? So we have to define the client. So how did I define this client? Using the documentation, right? So using this client method, the same method I defined here. Don't bother about this. Okay. What service name I wanted to access using IAM. Okay. After that, what is the method for this? Using response. This is the variable I will explain this later. First, you have to understand client dot list users. Let me copy this list users. Okay, client already we have here client object dot list users, right? Okay. Now we define the one method. The list users here using the list user method return the it will return the list of all IAM users, right? So let me comment it. Okay, let me print this and see check for the output print. I wanted to print what will output will be display here. Before going to print, as per the documentation, I wanted to store this result into response. You can define this is the response is the variable name. You can define any variable. I'm going to take the same variable name here. Let me assign the same value variable. So what are the method is returning the values here. I am going to store that one to that result into response. Let me print this response and check for that response and check the what the result of this. Okay, let me save this. Okay, let me execute this. For this, go to command prompt. Okay, let me move to this. So this is the source where I saved my Python program. Let me execute this and see the output. So if you are going to observe this, the output of this IAM users written in a dictionary, right? Dictionary is a key value file, right? So here I want to access only users under this key. So how do I access this? Let me copy this key value and may enter into here. Let me response, right? Let me delete one more. Okay, let me save this code again and let me execute this. So let me execute this command prompt, then you will get idea. Say again that output written as a list, right? So when you are using the key value as users, you are getting the output as list of in the list format. For this, if you want to access the username here, so here if you observe this username, yeah, so again the list value contain two dictionary values. So I want to access each and every user in the AWS console. If you observe this here, you can find two usernames. One is Deepu and one more user is Sasi. So who are in my, so let me, yeah, here let me click on users. So if you find this, the two users are accessed via this output, right? So this user list written as in a form of list. For that I want to use the for loop to access everyone. Now let me delete the print statement here and let me loop it. To access each user, I'm going to using for loop condition here, right? In so what are the output? I'm going to access each user. Let me print this, print each user. Again, let me save this. Let me execute this again. Okay, let me execute this command from. Okay, I'm going to execute the same again here. Let's see what is the output we will get here. Now if you observe this, again you are getting the dictionary format. Okay, so I want only username key value here. Let me copy this here. I want to paste here. So to access key values, we have to use the square brackets and the key value name here. Key value name here is username, right? So let me save this and execute it again. See, this is how you are going to access the IAM users using client objects, right?